friends, welcome to the next episode of Tom and Dave Discover DotVVM. I'm Tom.
And I'm Dave. Hello.
So what's the plan for today?
Today I prepared a completely separate thing. I prepared a few components in .vvm because I wanted to explore how components are made using .vvm, and I've prepared code that you haven't seen yet. So today we're gonna explore it together, and you'll give me some pointers on what's good about the code, and we can teach you all how to write better components in .vvm.
Okay, so let's look at the demo. We have a nice application with a lot of icons, a lot of buttons. So can you just briefly show us
Yes.
what's going on?
So basically, I wanted to see how extensible and how nice and colorful we can make .vvm. So these components are made to be nice and colorful. That's why we have so many variants of them. And also, I wanted to see how we can work with icons, because I know that there are some custom-made components for icon management, so I wanted to see if I can build one. And simple pass-through components, which just means that we wrap .vvm components around our own, which add styling or things like icons. And we can see that even for checkboxes, we can have nice icons in them. So that's the first part of it. And then there are some basics about .vvm controls, how to write a nice control, how to work with markup controls, how to work with legacy code only controls, which we'll talk about only briefly because you can do it, but you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's not the best option how to build controls in .vvm.
Yeah, and then controls with some logic behind them. So controls with their own view models. It's in big quotes because it doesn't have to be an entire view model, and we'll get into that. Then we have a simple JavaScript enhanced controls, which just does rendering, auto scroll, auto loading on scroll.
Infinite scrolling. It will never end.
Yes,
yeah.
As we scroll, we can scroll forever
until the memory runs out
Yes.
or something like that. Okay.
So these are the components we're gonna take a look at today.
Yeah.
They look nice. Hopefully they're written nice. We'll see.
Okay, and let's look at the basic concepts of how .vvm components are made, because these categories show different ways of how you can build components in .vvm. .vvm is here for like 10 or 11 years, so over the history we had several ways how to build components, and today the most preferable options are these first two, so like composite controls and markup controls. So let's go to Visual Studio to see some code.
Yep.
And first let's look at the page where the controls are actually used. So that page with the icons and buttons, it's this one.
Yes.
So you have built this CC icon.
Yes.
Yeah. To use this prefix, you have to register it in .vvm startup. I think that most people are already familiar with that. So then we have multiple versions of how you can use the icon. So you can select the icon that should be rendered and some variant, which is the color.
Yeah, it's the color. Yeah.
Then has background ring equals true, which means that it will have. I will switch back.
Yeah, it will
have this
within the ring.
This background. Yeah. Nice thing which most people don't know is that you can actually, if it's true, you can use it like this. It's valid.
That's true. Yeah.
So just if you haven't seen that yet, that it can make the syntax a little bit nicer. Then we have this, and here it's an example, maybe style. It's an HTML attribute.
Yes,
so if you name a property of a component style, it will have a preference. But probably it's better to use different name, because the names of .vvm properties are case insensitive. So like even if you write style with lowercase s, it will map here, but the IntelliSense doesn't know about that. So this is trying to use, that's why it's not blue, it's red, because it's trying to interpret it as CSS.
Yes.
Exactly. So I would probably rename that to some other name. And then we have the buttons. Okay, so we have text, click command, icon type, icon style. Okay, that looks pretty powerful. A lot of options for buttons.
Yes.
And checkboxes. So
even more options.
even more options. Okay. Yeah. So check icon variant, light, dark. Okay, nice. Yeah. So that could be great starter for a UI kit in the application. Everything would look the same way if you use this CC button.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
because you have just few options to choose the color. You have some consistent icons for the typical operations. So that's great. So how are these controls actually implemented?
Well,
so
it's only in code.
Yeah.
Let's go take a look at the composite controls. So
yeah, the composite controls.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's the first and I think the most popular way or nice way to build controls that just render some repeated or like templated piece of HTML. Yeah. So if you need to make all buttons looking the same way in the entire application, that means that they should have the same HTML, same CSS styles, same CSS classes. So a composite control is great for that. And just you substitute text and some commands and that's it. If it's simple enough, then I think composite control is great for that. The other type of components, the markup controls, we will see later, the use case for them is, I always thought about markup controls like to be application specific. Yeah. So some part of the page, some higher level module that makes sense only in this one single application, then it's a great use case for markup controls.
Okay.
But these buttons are way more reusable
Yes.
across one application boundaries. I can imagine packing these buttons to a library and make a standalone UI kit that could be used in thousands of applications.
Yes,
yeah?
exactly.
So that's the distinguish. If you are making something that's really generic, all-purpose, universal, then composite control can be a thing. If it's application-specific, used only within some context, then markup control would probably work better. So let's see how the composite controls are actually built. So the first thing, it has to inherit from composite control. It's a base class in .vvm framework that helps you to represent the control. And if I would look down, except of this getContents method, there is like nothing else in this class. So basically you can start with an empty class inheriting from composite control. And there is a convention that there should be a method that is named getContents, and it returns either .vvm control or IEnumerable of .vvm controls. It's usually, it's practical to make this like one-to-one. So like one composite control returns one HTML element. However, there are some scenarios where it makes sense to return multiple HTML elements. So like you can also. This can be either static or non-static. .vvm will work with both. Yeah, because if you need to declare some state in the component, then it doesn't have to be static, but it's practical. If you can do it static, it would be better, more universal. Yeah. And the reason why this is not like abstract method that would be declared here and you would override it here is that it can have custom arguments. So you define control properties by defining these arguments of this method.
Yes.
And it's convention based, so there are a lot of conventions. So like, for example, if some property of a button can be either text or a data binding, then you can use this value or binding type of string, and you made it nullable. So you can have button without a text. That's probably if you want just an icon on the button, then you don't need text on that button. Yeah. So if you just want button with an icon and nothing else, then that's why it's nullable. And that's the great. This nullability helps you to distinguish between the properties that are required or optional. Because if I would declare it without this question mark, DotVVM would complain. If I don't specify the text, it would complain, yeah, text is a required property, it has to be there. So either make it nullable or provide a default value, because if it has default value, also it's optional. You don't need to set it up in the markup. Yeah. So there is a value or binding. And before we go to the next one, there is basically three types of properties. So value or binding means it can be either a static value or a binding, or I can say it's only binding. So if I say I value binding, it means that this is binding only. You cannot write text equals hello world. It has to be text equals binding something. Yeah. And also, if I would declare it just like this, then it means that it doesn't support binding. You can only pass a static value there. Yeah. So like these are three options, and it's great to distinguish between them because that will do a lot of magic for you. It's always better to be a little bit more strict in terms what you will allow the users of the component to do. Otherwise, you would be it's difficult to make it reliable without bugs if there are too many options, and some of the options even don't make sense.
And
so it's
for example,
better.
for a simple button, I think that maybe a value or binding on the text is overkill, because you usually don't even change the text on a button. You don't tell it that the text click me means something else. So usually a static binding is much better there, or just value, not binding. Just value equals a string is maybe even like a nicer ergonomically to use than value or binding. But yeah.
What I like in composite controls that usually there is no overhead if you have this value or binding, because you can treat it as it was string. Yeah, you can pass it to the component using this, like for example, set property. This will work for either string or I value binding of string or value or binding of string. So if you can, and if it makes sense, you can do it basically for free, because it's just about this type. Then you work with this value in the same fashion. Yeah, that's the first thing. The other thing is that if you need localization to translate the text on the button, you don't need value binding for that. It can be done by resource binding, which would work even with this. Because resource binding, technically, it's not a binding. It's just substituting the value when it's being rendered. So then it behaves like you would type it directly in the markup. So if it needs to be localized, it doesn't have to be value binding. Actually, there is one bug in .vvm that if you would use resource items in value bindings, it will not work properly. We are working on fixing that. So like you always, if you are using resources for localization, always use resource binding, and it behaves like this. So for localization, you don't need that. Otherwise, the value binding, I have been using it only like if I was reusing the same page for like creating and editing data, then the text on the button can be like based on if I have the ID of the entity which I'm trying to work with. But again, it can be resource binding. So you are right that value binding here doesn't add that much value, but it's for free. You don't need to pay us like paid version of .vvm to use value binding on a button. So why not? Yeah. This is another example of a binding only property. If it accepts command, then it's not I value binding, but I command binding. Yeah. So this is pretty straightforward. It's also optional. So if you don't set it, then it will not complain, but the button would not do anything. But sometimes for testing it's convenient. It's fine. And it's I am thinking if there are some special use cases where that could be actually useful.
I know, maybe
except for like
maybe
making users confused, but like
maybe if you have something that's bound only on the JavaScript side and not even talking to that VVM, then you don't want to have a click command, but you want to define
that's true. You can always write on click equals some JavaScript even on this button, so it would be styled, but it would not do anything in the .vvm fashion. It would
maybe
just
like
trigger
that.
JavaScript. Okay.
But it's those conventions you can set up in the UI kit. So if you decide, like on the project that each button has to have a command, or maybe has to have a post back that sends something to the page and receives something back, then you can just use non-nullable click command and it will force you to define a click command, because on the default button it's not enforced. You can have a button without a click.
That's
so
true.
using these like wrapper composite controls, you can even like declare the way to write the page you want.
That's true.
It's also something that is kind of nice to maybe think about if you want to like limit the possibilities.
That's true. Like the wrapper control can be more strict than the control underneath.
Or even not have all the bindings needed. Like maybe a button has the button tag name and I don't even include it in the wrapper control.
Exactly.
So it may be like just what we need. Just enough.
Then we have 2 enums here. So like this icon placement, it's left, right. Small tip. CSS recently, because of the right to left countries and languages, they started using the terminology start and end. So instead of padding left, padding right, you can use padding inline start, padding inline end. And the great thing is that in some countries where they write from the opposite direction, even you want to flip probably even the icon and text placement, it makes sense because they are used to use it in other way. So I would today I would probably name it start and end, because in the right to left mode it would work.
I thought you were gonna say use a boolean.
No, never. Like boolean is not great for like this kind of
I like it
things.
ergonomically, because you would have a boolean is left, and if it's false it means is right, so it's like
then you need to add in middle is middle. That's that's the
exactly.
That's the problem. Like there is a rule about using enums just for like yes or no, but not like alternative 1 and alternative 2. Because like it will always bite you later when you need to add third option, and then you would have conflicting combinations of booleans that may not make a sense. Because if you say is left and is middle both the true, what it means.
Exactly.
It's difficult. So like this, there is also the variant. So like there is primary, secondary, success, these typical semantic categories of the things.
Yes,
so
this is also something that's nice. I wanted to basically create a mini UI kit where each component has those variants and has to support them, but only those variants. So basically each button has can have a primary, but also each checkbox can be colored based on these variants, so it stays consistent across the application, and it's a simple C# enum, so we can't really do anything else than the variant itself, so it's really nice to use. I really like that.
And this last thing, and I will format it like that so it's clear that this attribute belongs to this argument, to this icon capability. Capability is a special kind of property that allows you like to expand inside. So if you look in the icon capability, you can see there are 5 properties, and they make sense to keep together. Because they are somehow related to each other, and they describe how icon should look like, including all its features. So you declare it as it has to be sealed, and it's practical to make it record, because like DotVVM needs to compare the capabilities sometimes. And you can declare properties in the capability like this. Technically, it's better to have init setters here, but DotVVM will not complain if you don't. But then you change something and it's already copied somewhere, so it will not work. So it's safer to have init initializers here. But this is just a group of properties, and the component can have this group of properties, and you can say that they will have this prefix. So for example, we have this type property, it's named type, but it's prefixed with icon. So when we are in the page, there will be not icon type.
On the button.
Yeah, here on the
Icon type,
button,
yeah.
icon type hope. So like icon, it's the prefix. It's say, okay, go inside the capability and type equals home. So I'm now assigning property inside of the capability. There are funny situations because the component can have multiple capabilities here and they can overlap. So like when you set one property, it can be technically written into multiple capabilities because why not? And actually, why not? Like DotVVM will just write it to any property that will match this naming convention. And icon capability, it's your own record, so you can implement functions in it. You can do whatever you need with that. So it's great for sharing some logic or at least declarations between a couple of components. And actually, there are two built-in capabilities in .vvm that are useful to know about. First is HTML capability. And imagine that you want to add something that Dave didn't expect that you would use on his component. For example, title. Yeah, because like sometimes it's useful to have some attribute on that. And if I save it, and look in the browser, probably that would not work. Yeah, because like the controls by default, composite controls don't support anything that they don't know about. Yeah. And there is HTML capability that you can declare on the component, and it will catch everything that is not a property, and it will basically extract it as an HTML attribute. If you look in, this is decompiled .vvm code base, so you can see there is a dictionary of attributes, and it's configured that the attributes would come here. The prefix is empty, or HTML colon that has one special feature. Then also, for example, there is ID property. If you want to set ID or visible on the component, then like that's handled by HTML capability. And the HTML, this prefix, have you ever used that?
Nope, never.
Yeah. If you set ID on some element, .vvm will sometimes generate some prefix in front of it, so it would be unique if you use it in a repeater or something like that. And if you don't want .vvm to do that, you can say HTML colon ID, and that will be the real ID, the real attribute that nobody will touch it, so it will be fine. Also, these helpers we have been talking about in previous episodes, class dash something, that's actually handled by also HTML capability, and it will fall in this dictionary of properties. So class open equals some value or binding of Boolean. You can see value or binding of Boolean. Then it will be written in this collection. Yeah, so that's HTML capability. And if you request it here, you can pass it to a component. Some components allow you to put it here in the constructor, not button, but you can say button set capability HTML. And because like this HTML capability, it will catch the title attribute, then like it would be passed to the button. So if I rebuild that, the error should disappear. Just give it a moment.
You'll see.
Connection refused, and it's starting to be
okay.
working. And now,
which
of the buttons will search in the list? Yeah, so it's there. Yeah. So this allows you to use visible on the control, which is pretty useful on buttons. That's good thing to have the HTML capability, but you have to do it explicitly.
Yeah.
Or the ID, which can be useful for JavaScript purposes, or like for example, these attributes, class dash something, that's all, everything like that is useful. And that's the problem if you return multiple components, like to which of them you want to apply this HTML capability. So you can have it multiple times, but you have to prefix it. So for example, like first HTML, second HTML, and then you would use first class, second class, or something like that. You can do it. Yeah. And there is another capability that would be actually pretty useful for button, because if I want to make my own content of the button.
Button with a body.
Yeah. And have two icons in the button.
Okay,
I know I shouldn't in your applications, but like if I would want, I cannot do this. Even Visual Studio doesn't let me to write the element like that, but you can always convince it to do it. And if you, for example, put hello Dave like this, to put arbitrary HTML inside, that will also not be allowed. If I look here and refresh, you can see like this is not content, is not allowed inside button. Composite controls don't allow content by default. So there is another capability called text or content. I will just show it. I will not adapt the control to it. Text or content capability. And again, if we look inside, then you will see there is value or binding string text, and also list of .vvm controls content. And there are a few constructors where you can easily build these capabilities. And there is a useful method toControls that will make sure that at least one of them is set, but both of them shouldn't be. Maybe there should be XOR here. Maybe.
No, both.
If both of them are set, it also doesn't make sense. One of them have preference. If you set both text and content, which one has the priority? It's not intuitive. So probably we should change it to be like this. Either one or the other are set. Otherwise, like go away. But like that's an idea for an issue. Just I'm seeing it like here now. But if the text is set, it will create a literal with and it will return it as a collection of controls, or this will return a collection of controls. Not null is our extension method that throws exceptions sometimes. Sometimes when this is null, it will throw exceptions. So like that. So you can then just use toControls on it and put it inside the button, and that would allow you to have content inside. However, you also need to use control markup options attribute to tell the control that content is allowed, and the default content property, if people put content inside the control, it would go to content property. Because you can select, if for example repeater has this set to item template. That's why if you are using repeater, you can put the template directly inside. You don't need to write this item template, because it's default content property. So in our case, it will be content, so it will go to this one. And if I would, where I'm using text here, so I would instead just append like text.toControls, and it would do it. It would do it for me, and I could have multiple. I could have this H5 hello Dave inside, and it would work. And here also, I would not set a property. I would instead place things inside, and button tag name is button, so I will be allowed to do that because input cannot have content inside. It's the limitation of the HTML element. Okay, so I now broke it up, so let's fix it. Let's do it quicker, I guess, like this. And now it should be fine, and I also screw up this page, so I will unscrew it up, so like this. So let's see if we still compile. We still compile, and we still have this thing. So this is text or content capability and HTML capability, very useful ones. And once you start building composite controls in this way, you will see that capabilities are really strong and powerful concept. because you can reuse them across multiple components. And if you make some methods inside that will allow you to share some logic, and then it sometimes reminds me to as like working with mixins, that you can implement capability per feature, and then the control just can say, okay, I want this feature, this feature, this feature, and somehow like orchestrate them together. So it's pretty powerful concept, and I really like it.
Yeah. Or even like for the example I used it where it's like we have an icon and we want to reuse that same icon style to be rendered the same way on checkboxes, text buttons, or route links, which are just buttons or like checkboxes. They render within the checkbox the icon, so we can basically we don't have to use the icon properties all the time, define them. We can use the capability and we use it everywhere, so it's really nice. And then we can call the get contents on the icon. I know that it's something that shouldn't be done. We've talked about this previously because the composite controls can have pre-render or on-render or something like that. Yeah. So calling directly get contents might not be the safest option, but if it's a simple icon, then it's probably fine.
It's fine. Depends what you need. If this is declared as static, and you need to use another component inside the button, you can just call the static method. But it will just be the inside of the component. You will lose the wrapper, so it will not be wrapped by this icon or this button component. Sometimes it's fine, because sometimes you want to use just the inside of the icon. You don't need this wrapper, useless control that doesn't add any value, because even here it doesn't add any value. It just aggregates these properties, but it doesn't render anything if everything it produces is its inside. So like sometimes it's fine and you want that. However, if this is not static, it means that the component has some functionality, for example in the pre-render, or has some special requirements, and then you would need to call new icon and set it these properties or pass it its capability to the component, because the wrapper does something. Here, if this is static, the wrapper actually cannot do anything useful. It's just really a shell without any purpose. However, if it would not be static, and if you would be doing something here, then like you need it. Also, you can use dependency injection on components. If you declare that button needs some service, and one of the favorite ones is binding compilation service, and it will be about some other episode how to generate bindings on runtime, because we haven't speak about that and we will not have time for it today. So like then you will need binding compilation service. Sometimes you may need I.VVM request context, which is also useful. And DotVVM will create that component. It knows about dependency injection, so it will work. Again, if you have it like that, you cannot use dependency injection because it's static. So we've been just talking about these 5 lines for 30 minutes. It's amazing. I like it. Okay, so let's how long it will take to talk about this. Not that long, I hope. So inside of this getContents method, you should build a control tree that represents the inside of the component, and usually you will take things from here and use it somewhere inside. So basically your button is just .vvm internal framework button. So .vvm framework controls button, it's used the same name, so it has to be prefixed like that. And you just want to pre-configure it for users and render it as you configure it. So we will pass it the HTML capability, and there is this useful method set property, which that's what I was talking about, that is for free, because no matter if this is a binding or a value or binding or something else, then this property will be working with that. So I just saying take this click command and pass it to the click property of a button. So that's, you can use it for like this, and if anything like that, it would work. If this value is null, then this method will not do anything. That's also great because some properties are sensitive if you would be explicitly setting null into them. So like if this is null, it will treat it as like nothing happened. So like set property will not do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, or even it won't render the insides because we can do set property on the inner text and it won't just do anything.
Yeah, there is actually in these controls there is a difference between if the property is set or if it's null. Yeah, because set means it's missing from some like internal dictionary or whatever structure we use it to hold the properties of the component. So it's different than if it's set and it's null.
Yeah.
Because the properties also have inheritance. So like if it's not set, it means that it can be inherited from parents. But if you explicitly set it to null, then it will disable the inheritance.
Yeah.
So there is a slight difference, not used very frequently, but sometimes it matters. Okay, so here another useful method is add CSS classes, and you take this enum and pass it to some method that will generate these nice, amazing Tailwind classes. I really like them. I love them. They're all very nice. And then I can, based on what is set here, it will produce the correct combination of CSS classes.
Yes, it was a really nice way to keep everything together because you can set Tailwind up to look into .cs files.
Yeah.
It doesn't need like class equals some value. You can basically just say if you see a class name that you know within the CS file, then generate it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a really nice.
So like you
finding.
in Tailwind config, you said, okay, in this controls folder, scan also the C# files because they may contain some CSS classes. And if something looks like a CSS class, include it in the generated bundle.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's pretty nice idea. And maybe it will catch something that looks like a CSS class and it's not, but like the worst thing that can happen is that your bundle would be slightly bigger, would contain something that's not needed, but that's not a big deal. Yeah, you can set properties also like that just by assigning things. However, for bindings or value or binding, it's not that simple to set it up. So I recommend this set property. Actually, there is a fluent syntax, so you can chain it like this. It's the equivalent. It's the same thing. Yeah. So like you can also chain it like this, and you cannot chain this because it's an assignment. Yeah.
So you should use set property.
You don't need to, but it's useful. We've added it in the framework for purpose because writing things like that was a little bit annoying because you have to distinguish if this would be binding, do this, otherwise do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, in the first version of .vvm you had to call button.setValue or setBinding, and you did distinguish between those. So like this fluent syntax, I like it because most of my composite controls is just return this and blah 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 blah, and that's it. Yeah, hard to debug, of course. So like those are equivalent. So choose what you prefer. Yeah. So now there is the icon. So if there is something set about the icon, and the type means which icon it is. So if you say which icon you want, then we will take care of the icon. If you set some other attributes of the icon, but don't tell us what icon you actually want, what we can do with
and that. Also, that's one of the things where I struggled a bit because I set the icon capability as nullable, but it will never be null.
It will never be null. Yeah, that's true. So like technically, you don't need to have it. I think that...
Yeah, this is completely unnecessary because it means nothing.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you can say icon capability equals new or default, but default will be null, I guess.
I think...
records not?
No, because when the control got resolved, the icon capability was never null, even if it's not...
because .vvm will initialize it for you. Yeah. It will initialize it for you, so it will never be null, but I'm thinking about how to declare it here, so it doesn't have to be nullable, because it's never null, so why it should be nullable? But I guess there is no way how to write it, because it has to... You need to set the value, because you have optional here, so you need to assign something.
We can put it.
You could put it more forward. Yeah,
more-
so because the order doesn't matter, so like you can set it like this, and now it's not nullable. .vvm will always assign there something. Yeah, so like now you can get rid of this nasty question mark. So now it's much more readable.
That's explicitly something I wanted to talk about because I struggled with it a bit because I was like, it's nullable, but it's never null. But it's nullable, so C# tells me it can be null. But .vvm always fills something up, even if it's even if
you don't set any property of that, it will initialize it for you because we were. I guess we need it internally for some reason to be there, not to be missing. So we will initialize it with default values that are specified.
Exactly, yeah. Which also kind of defeats. That's something I'm kind of sad about because when icon capability .type is nullable, then it's nullable on the icon itself. So icon can be without an icon type. So I usually would probably, I don't know what to do.
I remember fighting with that several times, and what I did was like I did this no option equals 0 here in the enum to be able to. But it's also I don't like it much. So like it would be useful if the icon capability could be null, but currently it's not. Maybe we will add support for it later, but I guess it would be. I don't know if it would be breaking change or not. So
that's just
I
a
also
limitation.
think that the capability maybe it can be struct, so it would not be null. I don't know. However, like it's nullable, and to be able to see if the icon is set, it's possible to use it like that. So if the icon placement. The icon placement is in the capability also or not? No, it's not. Outside. Yeah, this is the button concern, and it doesn't say anything about the icon itself, so it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so based on the placement, either we will generate it here or we will generate it there. And if there is some text, then we will generate a span and put it like here. If there is no icon, we will just do this here, so that's nice.
Yeah, so basically we're using the contents we talked about, but we generate them ourselves. We don't let users define their own contents. We just do the icon and text ourselves as a content. So we append to children.
And also there is one trick. I just get the idea for it now. Let me try it if it would work.
Let's see.
Because as I said, I really like this fluent syntax. So let's fluentize it.
Okay.
So this, and this. Let's use set property. B button tag name is this. That should still work. And then, because I like pattern matching. So then we can say, like, what will be inside append children. And now I can say icon capability is type not now. And icon placement is left, so I need to use tuple.
Yes. So I was designing it like this to be readable for our users. But this...
So then in that case, if this hopefully it's correct. Yeah, so this I would use this. Otherwise, I would say null. And append children, if something is null, it will just skip it and go further. Yeah, so like if icon capability is set and icon placement is left, then give me the icon. Then give me the text. So like if text has value, then, and you can see Copilot already knows what I need to do. And actually I could use literal and put this value or binding here, I think. So like it would be... And literal by default it generates span, so I think that's exactly basically the same what we need. And then like will it produce what I want to do with the icon? No, it's not smart enough. Oh, it is. Like, yeah. So type is not null. Icon placement is right. So put the icon here, and then I can just write return, and that's how I like my composite controls to look like.
Yes. So I wrote it to be readable for our viewers, but this is something you post on LinkedIn to flex.
Exactly. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. So like this.
Beautiful.
Let's build it. Maybe I'm just showing off, and it will not work. So like, let's see. But it's shorter, and I like functional programming. So like, this is my kind of thing, and
it's still the same.
And it's still beautiful. It's still beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So like, you can use this Fluent syntax, or if you prefer this, which is easier to debug. That's for sure. This is easier to debug. You can use this one also. So then we will have it in Git. So like, I will undo it, and it's fine. It will be debuggable again.
Yeah, okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Let's look at other controls. We have the icon. So the capability is declared with the icon. And you can see this icon only has this icon capability. Yeah. That's it. And this is probably, if icon is this, use this SVG.
Yeah, I wanted to, basically, I really like the idea of having those predefined icons, because I saw it somewhere. I don't know where. I saw it on maybe one of our projects where I was helping our people with something. I was like, I really like this. It was a markup control that had include in page if the type is something. And I was like, I really like it, but it generates HTML that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it on the server side where it already is precompiled to be something based on those capabilities. And and yes, you can also do it with Copilot, but I really like how in a lot of free icon like setups, you can basically just copy the path and you have the path already there, and you don't have to create a new control, you don't have to do anything. It's a nice control, and you can set the icon type to a new value, and it's just really nice to use. I really like this one.
I showed that. I asked AI, and it's not just like because I guess all models could do that in this selection. I'm amazed how large language models can generate SVG files. I'm not sure about the intellectual property, because I don't know if it just steal this SVG icon somewhere and use it as it found, or if it's like hallucinated, combined 5 different cat icons. That, but I know that you love cats, so I wanted to extend the component, and like that's what I've been using recently, because I always used some icon pack, and I needed some icon that was missing from the pack, and asking LLM generate an icon for this in the similar style as the other icons, that proved to work really well. So now I'm not limited with some icon pack is missing some icon, because like LLMs usually generate good enough results for that. So let's see how our cat looks like. As you can see, it generated cat, and it added correctly. It added it in our enum. So like, I can ask it to test. No, I will not. I will just, I want all cats.
You can write the one word.
Yeah, but I want everything to be cats.
Okay.
That's a little bit more complicated operation. So let's do it. Let's rebuild it, because we have been changing C# code.
And also, if you noticed, we use a C#. Is that a cat?
You can see it's not that nice, but it's still a cat.
It's a nice caterpillar.
It's nice caterpillar. Okay. Yeah, so we have cat.
And as you saw, we use .NET enums. We use C# enums, but we use plain text in the controls. That's also something that's kind of nice, because if you were to use enums in the controls, that's not plain text. You would have to include the enum within the view model, within the view, and then use the type from the included property. So that's a really nice thing. We can just we know what the enum value is, so we just write it in plain text, and that's it.
Yeah. One slight problem of this approach is that this can be pretty long. So if you use a lot of icons on the page repeatedly, then it would be
Yes.
repeated many times in the output HTML, and it can make the page larger. On the other hand, most of the web traffic is gzip compressed, so this is pretty easy to compress because there are just letters and numbers. So like the compression ratio in SVG would be in general very nice, but still think about that.
Yep.
Sometimes it's better to have like one big SVG sprite that would be loaded and cached in the browser, and then just referencing parts of that. So that's the problem with SVG. There is no single way of using them, and each way is useful in different scenarios. So like be careful about that.
Or even like baking SVG to CSS and using CSS classes instead of the raw SVG.
Yeah.
That also might be good.
Yeah. Also, like if you need to edit this, it sometimes would be nicer to have just the SVG file somewhere on the server and just spit it out, because then you can open the SVG file in some application, in some software that is supposed to work with SVG and edit it. Edit it like that is that you have to steal it from the web page, from the generated HTML, and then incorporate the changes here, or ask Copilot, okay, fix it for me because this cat is not nice enough.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's good enough for this example, but
for the sake of example, it's perfect.
In a production environment, this would look very much differently.
Let's look what other component we have. We have the checkbox.
Yeah, checkboxes. I kind of wanted to flex a bit with styled checkboxes that can use icons, and then I found out that checkboxes are really hard to style. So you have to hide them. I always hate that on drop-downs, options, select options and checkboxes, that when you want to have them nicely, you have to hide them and use something else. So basically, most of this is just generating a different kind of checkbox using HTML and hiding the original checkbox. But we, again, use .vvm checkbox, so all the bindings are properly .vvm bound, and we just hide it and use its functionality on its child components or parent components, I think. It gets one label within which it's set up.
Let's see what's inside.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
So like, as you can see, this checkbox is actually a label element, which is great because when you click on the label, it will find this input and click it.
Yeah.
And this is like SR only and peer, which means it's hidden.
Yeah.
So like if I look here, it will be display block, okay, but like visibility maybe will be position absolute, and it will be somewhere out of the view with 1 pixel, and it will be somewhere out of the view.
I think it's just
not visible.
Extremely hidden, but it has to be somewhere on the page. It can't be hidden to work properly, I think.
Margin. It's out of the screen and something like that. Then never mind. Like it's hidden, but it has to be there for accessibility reasons. If somebody is blind, they use keyboard, they need to be able to focus that input and like do these things. We can style it using CSS to look differently, but we still have to keep the original input somewhere there and manipulate with that. There are a lot of things. For example, if I tap on that checkbox, if it has the focus styles somehow done, I'm not sure. I'm still here. Buttons have the frames. Then this not, but because these are just icons, not buttons.
Yeah.
And now this should be focused, but we don't have the style. Never mind. But when you press, for example, the space bar, it works. So the built-in input type checkbox has a lot of features that would be very difficult to handle all the situations in JavaScript. So always, if you can reuse the original control, just hide it, but keep it there so it would respond to all kinds of interactions, because I'm sure there is a lot of interactions the component can do with the screen readers, for example, I'm not aware of. So like if I decide to implement it completely myself, I would probably break some people who have some accessibility problems and who rely on these standard components that implement the necessary functionality.
And also here in Europe, accessibility acts are happening.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot
Yeah,
in the government,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
pages have to be accessible if
Yeah.
if you want to
Yeah.
be able to be used widely. Yeah, I've also recently gone back from. I always wanted to have like all the pretty components, so basically faking everything, but these options where you're on Android, it shows a completely different
Yeah.
type of selection box
Yeah.
than if you're on Windows. It's not. It's kind of sad that it's not that pretty, but you have to sacrifice something in order for it to be workable. Yeah.
So and then this is visible, and that defines how we want the component to look like.
Yeah.
And still it's inside the label, so if I click on anything of that, that would map to click on that input. So that's the great thing the label can do for us. We don't need JavaScript for that. It would work automatically because the label is bound to this component, to this input. Even though it's not visible, it will work. Yeah. So that's a nice thing to do. And one thing about .vvm checkbox is that it's how to say it? Like, I don't want to say it's a bad design, so I should say it. It's a complicated design, I would say. More complicated than people would expect. Because we wanted to have the text property on the checkbox. Yeah, because like usually you need checkbox accompanied with some text. And also there is this something like text or content capability. The control is actually older, so it will not be text or content capability. That would be done manually, but still, like, you can put content inside the checkbox. However, and if you want to wire it with the label, then you need to either the label has to be around that checkbox, or you would need to have ID, and the label would need to have 4 and to be linked by ID, which I really don't like because it's repeating a lot of same things. It easily forget, you copy paste something, you have duplicate IDs in the page. It's not a great thing. So this checkbox was trying to do something for you, but sometimes it renders label. If you use text property or the content, it will render label. If you don't use that, it will render pure input type equals checkbox. That's, if you know about that, if you expect that, then it's great, because if you need separate label and map it to the checkbox with the IDs, you can.
Yeah.
And if you need the checkbox inside the label, you can also, the control can do both, but it's not intuitive to use. Like, either we should have to have 2 controls, like standalone checkbox or labeled checkbox, or I don't know, some other solution, but this is not
make it more clear what the decision is.
Thing. It's pretty complex inside. Even if you look in the source code of the component, you don't want to touch. We don't want to touch it. Every time we touch it, something breaks. So we don't want to touch it.
So then this hiding is a valid way to render this.
And the checkbox actually have 2 usages. Either you set is checked, or you can bind it to a collection and give it the checked value, and it will ensure that if it's checked, the value will be in the collection. If it's unchecked, the value would be removed from the collection. So if you have multiple checkboxes, then bind them to a same collection, and they will make sure that the collection corresponds to which checkboxes are actually checked. And recently we have been working on a bug to fix a bug in this functionality. After 7 years, we found out that we still have some missing things, but actually it was unintended behavior of knockout.js. So like we fixed knockout.js and it fixed our checkbox in .vvm, which was of course correct and beautiful and nice and things like that. So check changed command. Okay, so if you want to respond to changes, then you can set this command, but it's optional. And also check icon. That's what allows you to say that if you check it, there will be the cat, for example. So it will not be checkbox, but a cat box.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great.
I thought about it when I was writing this, and I was like, this is so unnecessary, I have to do it. But I've never seen a checkbox that when you check it shows something else than just the
the cat box idea.
Yes, exactly.
I think that just gave purpose to this component. Yeah, okay. So
really
like,
nice theming.
yeah, super. Okay, so like now you render this div with these crazy tailwind, nice, amazing, big, beautiful classes. Uh,
Exactly, yes. And also, one of the things that I didn't do here, and I realized it when it was like 1 a.m. in the morning, I was like, am I using add CSS classes correctly? Because we have add CSS class and add
Yeah.
CSS classes.
Yeah.
And add CSS classes, you don't have to write one long class. You can write many smaller classes, and
Yeah.
it just aggregates them together.
Yeah.
So I was using it probably wrong every time.
I think in this case it doesn't matter. You can use add CSS class. We don't check if there is a space in that class.
Yeah, exactly.
So like this is fine. It would be combined correctly. Add CSS classes is used when you have collection of parameters, string collection. Then you can pass it there, and it will like join it for you. Because like using string join is too complicated, I guess.
Exactly.
But it's clean. It's cleaner if you think about that, and it could be. I'm not sure if it supports binding. No, it has to be string array. So like yeah. But like even if you use just add CSS class, we would treat this as one class, but the browser will interpret it as it should, so it should be fine. Yeah. Okay, so then we are generating icon, either this one you selected or this other
one.
Yeah.
We basically have to have an icon there.
Yeah, there should be some default
so
choice,
we have
I
a
guess.
default.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and this is just the visual box. Okay, yeah, this is the box, and the checked icon is either displayed or hidden. I see. Yeah, and we display or hide this icon.
The icon has a opacity 0 class,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the visual box
Yeah.
has a really complex tailwind class. I didn't know this existed until I used it. When you scroll to the right,
Okay, yeah,
we have
yeah,
tailwind
this peer
class
checked. Yeah.
that works on the children. I didn't know that it precompiles like this CSS. That's kind of nice. It doesn't look nice, but for these one-liners, it's quite okay. So it basically sets the opacity 100 for the child if this one is peer checked.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it will, because we set this peer class to the checkbox, so it will find this element, and if it's checked, then it will apply this opacity 100. Exactly. And the nice thing is that you can animate that. If you would set transition, it would be nicer animation to that. That's pretty nice. It's pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the syntax, but like it was if AI can generate these things and I understand what it's doing, then I'm fine with that.
I was like, I'm writing basically CSS, but in one line.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but like if I would want to write this in classic CSS, it would take me, I don't know how many lines, but like either one long line, but it would be a couple of lines, and here I can work with that as a single CSS class, and I am not sure, because in .vvm you can use class dash and this equals to a Boolean expression. I'm not sure if this would be accepted as an attribute. Let's try that. So for example, class equals. We should support that.
Visual Studio breaks, but maybe .vvm compilation won't.
This I think this is breaking.
Oh yeah, we have. So if you HTML encode your characters.
Doesn't look right, this, I think, but I'm not sure. Maybe if maybe we could support that, because like to be able to turn this on or off maybe we could introduce some better. Yeah, but like the problem is the quotes. The quotes are behind the after this character. So if we would do it like this and support that, that would be pretty nice. Okay, I should stop doing crazy things. Let's go back to our checkbox. So that's a very useful, long, hard to remember, but very useful class. And
Yeah.
then, again, we are setting the text.
Yeah, that's basically it.
And this apply variant, again, like we are just transforming the enum to these things. And there is a trick. I can show this enum can have this enum member, and this would tell DotVVM that if you send this to the client, or if you just use it, use this string representation of this item. So technically, if I know that I will not use it for any other purposes than this, I could technically take this and put it, where I was here, and put it here. And then in the control, I could say something like, instead of apply variant, I could say, or like, let's return variant to enum string, and this will translate it to that value.
I understand. Yeah. I don't know if I like it.
Can be. However, sometimes it's useful. Yeah. Yep. And we are using it a lot because if this would be a binding, then also we can like project it with this to enum string, and that would also work. Yeah. So like that's probably a way to go. Yeah, I'm returning it. I shouldn't return it. I should use wrapper at CSS classes like that. But that's an alternative. Sometimes it's useful, maybe not for the so many classes for that.
For a different
but
purpose,
if I would have like, for example, checkbox primary class, then I would I could do it like that and just say, okay, at this CSS class for this enum member. Yeah. So that's an option. Sometimes it's useful to think about it. Okay.
Or even you can pass the SVG path into the icon.
That's true. Actually,
it's
good. You should don't do that. Don't do that. SVG as enum member value. No, it's too long. It has some other side effects.
So exactly.
There was the last control, the route link.
Yes, that's basically a button.
Yeah.
With a route name that's value or binding, which isn't good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. So like, if you want to build a component that is similar to route link, there is a ready-made route link capability that you can use because route link has again several special features. So instead of defining route name and all these other properties, you can just use route link capability and just pass it to the route link using like route link set capability, route link capability. That would work better, and you don't need route name like that. And the good thing is that route link capability also handles this param slash some parameter equals some binding or something like that. It will put it in this dictionary, or query parameters that would put in this dictionary, and URL suffix if you want to add like hash something, for example, or do whatever you want with the rest of the URL, you can use that. So these 4 properties are already handled with route link capability, and you can just pass them to the route link, and it will behave consistently with DotVVM route link. The problem of value or binding for the route name is that if you would use value binding for the route, it would not work. Because value binding must be possible to translate to JavaScript. And if you change the route name, you would need to have the route table available on the client, which is a little bit security risk to give anyone all possible routes that your application can respond. It's better if they have to discover it and DDoS your server to discover all the routes. It's better. But like there can be some routes that could be sensitive and that could hint the attacker about structure of your application. So you should probably not publish it. So that's why route links. Route name doesn't support bindings. It supports only the hard-coded value or a resource binding. If you need it, you need to use resource binding.
Yeah.
So that I think that this should still work if we recompile it. And it should
I think I
work
have just
better.
a route name there, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have route link.
In the master page we have.
In the master page,
for
for the routing.
names.
So now if we have it, you can also use param dash something, but this page has no parameters, so IntelliSense doesn't show anything.
Yeah. And
So
it
it still works. Great. Okay, so like that was composite controls.
Exactly.
Did we forget something? There will be more episodes, I guess. So like, let's
definitely
go to,
look at composite controls
let's
more
go
because
to
they're the preferred way to build simple controls.
Yeah, exactly.
They're my favorite, so
okay.
Talk about them.
Okay. So let's shortly look at markup controls. They are not that complicated,
Yes.
so I think it will be much quicker than composite controls. They are composite. They have a lot of things to do. So like this is an address form as I understand it. And like I'm a human, that's nice. Like, I think we will need this more and more often. And
that's something I wanted to show. This is an unstyled checkbox.
Okay, that's that's really ugly. I don't like it at all. Like, it's not good. Okay, but it's accessible.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fine, but if you want to have nice pages.
Yeah. Okay, so like this address form is implemented like this, and it's a quite common pattern that you have this base type behind the markup control, because this was how markup controls were implemented in the past since the first versions of .vvm, so a lot of people use it. And in this address form, you declare control properties like this. There is a code snippet feature in Visual Studio that should never exist, but it exists. And because it leads to code repetition, it makes code repetition easier, and code repetition shouldn't exist. So like that's why code snippets shouldn't exist. But like if you write .prop and use a couple of escapes because of resharper, and then use a couple of tabs, it will create you this nice code snippet, and you can tap through these placeholders unless you have resharper, which starts doing bad things for you. But never mind. Like so, that's how it's declared, and that. And if it's declared like this, it supports both value and bindings, unless you say markup options and say like allow binding false or allow hard coded value false. Yeah. So we didn't have, in the first version, we didn't have value or binding. That's why we declare properties like that. And this thing is there, so it would support bindings. Yeah. However, this is quite common pattern, but I would discourage people from using that, because control properties, and then if it's declared not in the view model but in the control, you can access it using this underscore control. There was in the past some binding type called control property, which don't use it. It still works, but it's the same as value. Just instead of if you don't use that, .vvm will use underscore this, and if you use control property, it will just change the default. So by default, it will be underscore control.
Yeah, I was quite confused because LLMs always tell me that it exists.
It exists, it will work, but like it wasn't a good idea. So like please don't use it. The thing about these properties of the control is that they should not persist state. They should persist like configuration of the control, how it should behave, what it should do, but it should not persist state, because everything that you keep in the controls and not in the view model can sometimes get lost. So the state, like what is filled in the address form, should be in the view model, and control properties are, for example, for either like configuring how it should look like how many columns I want it, if I want this gap or the other gap, how it should look like, if there should be labels, things like that. like controlling the control appearance, for example. Or sometimes you need to pass more than the view model to the control. For example, if there would be country selection, list of countries can be passed as a control property, because the control would not modify it. It would just need to access it somehow, but it doesn't need to do anything like that. It's just a pass-through thing. This is a little bit problematic because when you change it, sometimes there are situations where this would not be written in the underlying view model. So like in the first version of .vvm, this was fine. Right now, I would encourage everyone to declare a class with plain properties like street, city, state, blah, 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 and reference it here as a view model of the control. And then when I'm using this address form, I would use it with data context is this address object, and that would be nicer. This also has performance implications once we get a bug report that like markup controls are terribly slow, like you have to do something about that. And somebody was passing a collection of like 10,000 items in this control. And because of how this is implemented, this is copied once the control is used. So there was copying of this big collection, and that was creating performance issues because this control was also in repeater, so it was multiple times on the page. So like if you can avoid control properties, try to avoid them. They're not really nice. They have performance implications. They should be used only for like fine-tuning something in the control, but not carry the main data the control works with. The principle here is fine. Like you can use this control property, you can use it in bindings, and like there can be also commands, so you can also call methods on the control. Again, like try not to use it, because like controls in MVVM should not contain logic and should not maintain the state. They're only like visual representation of something. So the control should care about how it will look like, what it will look like, but not much about the data. The data and behavior should be handled with the view model. That's the fundamental principle of MVVM. And if you try to break this principle, sooner or later it will bite you or kick you or do some very nasty thing to you. So like that's, I think that this is pretty important. There is new syntax, how to write properties. So if you want to, again, not for data, but for settings of the component, but you can declare add property. And here you can use this value or binding or I-value binding or like just string. So that would not even support bindings because like it's not editable here, so it doesn't matter. But like you cannot send the value using binding. You need to send it by resource binding here, and that's here. So that's
so for example here. Would you also not recommend the base, or this is basically using a base type without
that's
the
base type
C#
without
class?
the C# ceremony?
Yes. So would you also for a simple user profile?
I would create an object that would have name and email property, because I would need this object on other places as well. Because there will be some function, give me user profile, and it would need to give me the name and email. So I can reuse the same model object for the component, and it can be the same model that comes from my business layer. If I have something like a business
That's also
layer.
something I've been recently doing, basically not using properties that much.
Also, like if something is related to each other, like name and email, it belongs to the same person, they are related together, it's great to have a model object for them. Because if you don't, then you will have methods like save customer profile, and there will be 10 parameters, or most of them would be strings, and it's so easy to switch them like by some accident. It's confusing. You don't want to have methods with 10 arguments. So like model object is a great thing. Even sometimes I'm creating model objects only if I would have name, I would wrap it in a model object, because I never know when the customers come and say, oh, let's add an icon here, let's add a description here, let's split it to more things, and then I would have to make a lot of changes. I know that today AI can do these things, but still, if you think a little bit forward, not over architecting, but just like think a little bit over, a little bit more abstract than you actually need, then I think it's useful. And it doesn't take so much time, so much extra time to have it like that.
And also, this is like the third stream we say it.
Yeah.
It's easier
Validation
for validation.
target. Validation target, validation target, validation
Exactly.
target. If it's just a string property, you cannot validate it separately. If it's a model object, you can validate it separately as a one single unit. That's important. That's true.
Yeah.
So validation targets everywhere. Yeah. So let's go to the next category of components. Do we want to scare the viewers?
Let's show really quickly and hide it.
Yeah.
There's a reason this is called legacy.
Yeah. And okay. So
there,
the first way of writing components in .vvm was like this. You inherited some either .vvm control or like .vvm bindable object base or like HTML generic control. They were inheriting from each other, adding more and more features. Usually you needed HTML generic control, which produces an HTML element. And you declare properties like that. We have already saw it. You can configure the wrapper tag. And then there were like either you could build controls in this init method, or some components, they didn't even use that. They didn't build their internal components. There were four methods.
What do they do?
Add attributes to render that can like when the control is being rendered, it can say like add class like this.
Oof.
You could override render begin tag. So you could write any like render element, like something like that. You could override what the control is producing. There is also render end tag, and there was like render contents. So you can just emit HTML that should be printed out in the page.
Yeah.
So it's very low level. However, most of the framework controls are written in this manner. Because if you need to write a component like repeater, you cannot do it in any other way than this. You have to be that much low level. And if you look in the repeater implementation in the framework, like it's very long, it's very complicated. But once you have this control, then you can use repeater very easily in composite controls. Because like it's just like configured, it does everything you need, but inside it's very, very complicated. So this is the low level way, but if you need exact precise HTML rendering, that can in some cases still be good, because for example there is like, and you cannot do it with the composite control at write knockout data bind command, for example. If you need to render a control that doesn't have any HTML attributes and it uses knockout.js commands which can contain bindings, this is the only way how to do it. So like there are some specific usages where this can be useful, but if you don't have to, don't do it. Try some higher level approach. And if you understand how to write these controls, we want you to help us contribute to .vvm.
Exactly, yes.
So like, don't try to that, because otherwise we will find you and we will grab you and you will have to help us with building .vvm. So like, please don't.
Like, for example, I in my years have never even seen this. This is literally taken from our documentation. The exact way to write a label with text box component control. That's it.
And that's a great thing you mentioned, because we recently started rewriting the control development section in the documentation, because it was structured based on what methods came first. They were first in the documentation. So we started with version 1, and there was these code-only controls and markup controls the old-fashioned way, as we showed with the base type. And then we added composite control, so we added that as a third option. But like we want people to use composite controls and markup controls with this new property declaration thing, because this is easier, less error prone, better to maintain, and like we don't want people to even know about code on the components.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like we started to restructuring the documentation. So at first, when you first look at, you would see composite controls and this, because like to teach it as like in school, like the first there was this, then it was this, then it was this, and now we have this, and this is the best. It doesn't work. We need it to the opposite way. Yeah. So like that. Okay. So let's continue. So what we have next?
Okay. Next are the controls we've been talking about already.
Yeah.
The ones we currently like.
Yeah.
The controls with code behind, that's a view model. Because in the control definition, it's add view model, but it really has little to do with view models. It doesn't have to be a view model like in the .vvm sense. I've recently found out. It doesn't have to have its own life cycle. It's basically just a background class that you can reference within the markup, and you can use the data context to reference it within the page. So that's what we're gonna take a look at right now.
The difference is when you need the control to be self-contained.
Yes.
Yeah. To have some behavior, to have some logic, to work with some data, and do not care much about what's going on in the rest of the page. Yeah. Because if you look at these basic pass-through controls, as you name them, like they don't need any state. Like it's just button. Yeah. It's just visual element that will allow you to do something, that will like take some values, pass it somewhere there, render them in some fashion, but it doesn't have any behavior on its own.
Yes.
However, here we have behavior on its own. Like if I write, what was it, banana?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, as you can see, you type something, it will search for a value. Yeah, you can manipulate with that. And if you would have 10 controls like that on the page, each would be different, then your view model would have like 20 properties, 10 methods, and everything is on one place. It doesn't relate to each other, but it's still on one place, and it's hard to take away and reuse on other place in the application. Yeah, so like if you want to be self-contained and reusable on more places, then control with view model, with its own view model, it's a very useful concept. So let's look at that.
And also I quite enjoy, I don't know if it's the like correct way, but lately I've been writing more controls, and I've been using the view model and then few properties. For example, if it's a text box, then the label, I just have a property for the label because it's written in HTML. It's nicer for designers to write in HTML. They don't have to write in the view model that the text box view model has a title of text. So for things like that, I like the properties, and it's really enjoyable because you have one code behind. That's like not code behind, one view model. That's the CS class. No .vvm property things, nothing like that. And then just the properties in the markup, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's a great point you made, because like a lot of applications contains forms, and usually there's some label and text box next or under the label. And if I would be writing this like form item or form row for element component, then like it needs to get the title, and needs to get the text that could be changed in. Yeah, the user can type in the text box. And these are both are strings, but one of them is the data that is the state of the page. So that text of the text box belongs to the view model.
Yes, exactly.
But the label that is used for just labeling the text, it's not a state.
Yes.
It shouldn't be in the view model. Yeah, so like it would be a combination. Like you would pass data through this view model, and if you need to configure the labels or appearance, you can use property and label text
This lately
Yeah,
what
and then
I've been
use it. So a
enjoying.
combination of that and distinguishing what is data and what is like some environment state, or
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it, then it could be fine. Yeah, so this search view model, if you look inside, it has everything the component needs to work with.
Yes.
So like there are some like
Items.
items, yeah. Then there is the search text, search results, and the search method that is doing some very sophisticated searching, searching that. Oh my god, I really don't like this.
Exactly, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, big beautiful search implementation. Very
Yes.
nice. Yeah, so like if you want to do it correctly, there would be like a string comparison, current culture ignore case.
It was very late.
Yeah, I know. And like, do you know why I don't like to lower? It's because .vvm. We have one customer from Turkey,
Okay.
and they have one special thing that most other languages do not have. Do you know what will happen if you this expression in most languages it will result to like this letter.
Yes.
However, in Turkish, this would be capital I with the accent, with the dot. If you look how Istanbul is written on the signs, it has the capital I with the dot on top of it. Yeah. So, and when we were serializing something in .vvm, we were using to lower. And so like we get a report from Turkey that like, sorry guys, you cannot do it like that because like it's different letter, then it should be there. So like since then, if it's some identifier, something in the code, then you should use to upper or to lower invariant. That will solve your problems. And if it's something that the users work with, some like value, some text that means something in some language, then usually current culture ignore case comparison is fine.
Yeah, what I remember is this is something from old entity framework, I think, which didn't have string comparison, so you had
entity
to use
framework
to lower
6 didn't have for some time didn't support this, but it supported index of with this enum. So like index of is greater or equals 0 work, but contains didn't work. That's true. And also like in databases, it's more difficult than this because it depends on the collation set up on the SQL column. So like that's a little bit different situation.
So there's a reason why to lower is ingrained in my brain.
Yeah. Okay. So like this is the view model. And how we use that in the page?
It's really simple. We basically just use the view model. That's it.
Basically, we declare this view model as a property, and the page then sets data context to this property.
Yeah.
And there is a validation. The control needs to be in the data context of that type that is specified here. So if this type is not there, it's a different type, then it will complain. And a great thing is that this can be an interface. So if you need to use this component in multiple places and you are not using the same model object, if you can use it as an interface, then you can use this control on multiple places. The only problem with that, and that's maybe what we will address in some next versions of .vvm, is generic. Because it would be amazing if you could use generic things here, but like not that easy to implement actually.
So search for view model for strings or for enums, like based on what generic is going inside a different control will appear.
Not exactly, but for example, you can use if you need to use grid view inside. Then it's using a grid view dataset of something.
Okay, like this.
And then, in that case, you cannot. Or I think recently we had some bug report about data pager, and also the grid view dataset is generic.
Yeah.
And there are some interfaces on it that are non-generic, but they don't have all the information that you may need in the component. So like that would be the reason.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I
yeah.
was thinking about the implementation of generic, not the usage of generic types. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
you can always have like a control for each type you want to use inside generic. Nobody, and it can inherit from some shared body, but like it would be useful if we supported generic.
Okay, so this is a really nice view model thing.
Yeah.
And if you take a look at the class, the C# class, we basically have the .vvm view model base, because I was like, it's a view model, so we have to inherit from view model base, but we don't have to inherit from this. So if we are not using any lifecycle functions like pre-render or onInit or something like that,
for example, this one, if it's .vvm view model base, this will be there and it will be actually called. So if you need the control to load some data, then you can declare pre-render in that, because there are two philosophies. One is that the page should load all the data and then pass them down in the components. That's also useful, for example, for if you worked with React, that's a pattern that you should follow. However, sometimes that pre-render in the page would get very complicated, because if there are 10 different components, they need to load data and each component needs different data. Then like it makes your pre-render really long. So like sometimes it makes sense to be there. What is a problem if control loads something and then in the page you need to look at that and do something with that? That's not a good pattern, because pre-render in the component, in the child view model, it's called later than pre-render in the page. So what I saw that people, pre-render is too late, so we have to load data in load. And then we have pre-render in the page, so I'm sure that the data is already in the component. But like, then you need third level of this, so like there is init, load, pre-render, and then you will run out of the lifecycle methods you can hook to. So it's not a good thing. It's better, in that case, it's better to load it in the page and pass the data down to the components. And also, if multiple components work with the same data and you would load it in this pre-render, there is a chance that you would be loading the same data 3 times. So like it's better to load it on the page level and pass them wherever it's needed. It depends on the scenario.
And also I quite enjoy like the control to page communication between view models. It's really nice because you can basically declare an event or delegate on the control and do something like search completed. That's exactly what
when this control finishes the search, then it should be nullable. Then like the page can react to that and do something after that. For example, refresh other part of the UI. So then you can do that, and here you can just invoke this event. So like search completed, no, search completed, invoke, and blah blah blah.
Exactly.
What I don't like that this is not asynchronous, like, because I don't know if the consumer is synchronous or asynchronous, and so I never know if I need to be like func task or action, and func task will not work well with the event handler. So that's what I don't like, but I don't have a solution other than page level messaging. We wanted to add that controls in the same page or parts of the view model in the same page could post messages and communicate between that, but like it was too complicated. We never did that. But it anyone can implement it on their own if they need that. But we didn't want to put it in the framework because if you need messaging in your page, probably the page from the UX perspective is too complicated and you should split it to smaller pages, I guess. Unless you are building something like Visual Studio in the browser, and then you will have bigger problems than missing messaging framework in .vvm. You will deal with difficult situations. So you can define event, and the page can respond to that event. Just if the response need to be asynchronous, then it's like I was usually setting setting a Boolean flag in this event handler that like something needs to be refreshed, and then refresh that in a pre-render.
Okay.
Yeah, similar as the dataset is doing
Yes.
that, because the grid view dataset also have like is refresh required. It's there because if you trigger multiple events that needs refresh and you would refresh immediately, you could be loading the data many times
Yes.
during the same postback. So that's why when dataset needs to be refreshed, we just flip a Boolean flag, and then in pre-render we do one single reload if it's necessary.
Yeah,
So
sense.
that was the philosophy how we got to this.
Yeah.
This thing. Okay.
So these are lately one of my favorites.
Yeah. It doesn't need to inherit from
Yeah.
.vvm view model base.
And it can inherit from iValidatable object.
Yeah, that's true, and it can implement iValidatable object there
That's
and
also
handle
nice.
the validation within the component. And again, validation targets, you already know that. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, great. One more thing, data context of the control can even be like integer or string.
Yeah.
It can be anything, but validation target cannot be anything. Validation target must be object. So it doesn't have much sense, but sometimes if it's just something very simple that you will use in repeater on string collections, then like you can have view model of string. Not a big deal, but like it's not very useful. Okay, so let's look at the last control.
Yes.
And
this was something that I found out literally like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Because I was always building applications that are not very user-centric. Like big dashboards and big tables that are just like when it's loaded, it's loaded. It doesn't do anything else.
Yeah.
You click a button, you load something else. You don't have that much JavaScript. You basically just call postbacks.
Yeah.
So this was something really nice. JavaScript enhanced controls, I really enjoy them. This one is a simple infinite scroll where we create a JS module that handles the infinite scrolling, and the JS module calls our .vvm function.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. Let's take a look at our infinite scroll.
Yeah. So basically, it's just a markup control.
Yes.
And there is this important directive at JS. And you can imagine this is something like a code behind, maybe something like base type, behind the control, but it's written in a JavaScript or better TypeScript.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you use this component multiple times on the page, each of them has their own state, so you can do anything like that. And what it allows to you is to call JavaScript functions from, for example, if there would be some buttons, you can say button, call me a function in this module. And from the module, you can modify the view model or do whatever you want. Or you can call named commands. So if you do something in JavaScript and then need to notify the server, you can call this named command.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can also read the result of the named command.
That's
something very nice.
because they can have result.
Yes.
And you can process the result as it would be like, this function can return data and you will get access to that in JavaScript so you can process the data.
Yeah.
It's great for integrating like JavaScript components. Like I have been writing some map controls using that because you can just declare a div and in JS module can use the map SDK to like generate this experience for me. You can respond to events when something happens. You can call named commands or charts or like some interactive
or even like
things.
Using hardware like camera controls. You want
That's true,
client side. You don't want to send notifications to server all the time. You don't want to postback call on each update. So you do that in JS, and when something happens, like when a user takes a screenshot, then you want to send the command with the data.
And the problem I see on that is that composite controls cannot have JS modules. Yeah. And we should implement that in .vvm because that would be really nice. Because sometimes I have a feeling that is missing from composite controls. Because then you need to build classic knockout binding handlers with JS modules. Maybe you would not need to. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
like let's see. Okay, so this control view model is object, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And there is a property list of items. So again, we are passing data as properties, but
Yes.
like never mind. And there is some like load more items command action,
Yes.
and that allows people to pass command binding to a control. It could be also I command binding. That
Yes,
would
that's
work
true.
also. That's fine. Like no, not a problem. This works also. There is also type command in .vvm.
Yes.
It also works. So like there are multiple options how to do that. Yeah, and this JS module will just fill this collection. So let's see how it looks like. And so JS modules, how it works.
So what are JS modules?
What are JS modules? In 2015, there was a new version of JavaScript called ECMAScript 6, or like ECMAScript 2015. And it introduced the concept of like a lot of new features. One of them were like JS modules. And basically, it's the import and export keywords. So without modules, if you load a JavaScript and declare a function, the function would be put in the global scope. So any scripts can interfere with that. If you import multiple libraries, they could declare functions with the same name. So one would be overwriting the other. It would be a total mess. It was total mess. Yeah, like we have suffered a lot. So modules allow you to isolate things. So if you declare something in the module, it will be internal or like private or something like C# private, unless you say export. And if you say export, it's still not pushed to the global scope, but other modules can import these things from your modules. Yeah. So like it's just like exposing things, potentially exposing things from your module and allowing others to consume that, but they can pick what they want from your modules. And also, modules can have state. Each module is a singleton. Even if you load it multiple times in the page, it will be there only once.
Yeah.
So like something like static variables.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also you can declare things. So for example, .vvm JS module, they have the only requirement. It needs to be default export function that accepts some context, and it should return an object that represents the state of that component, because the component can be on the page multiple times. So it's a function. .vvm will call this function for each instance of the component in the page, and each would have their own state, which is presented in this. It can be a class. I don't like classes in JavaScript much, but like never mind, it can be a class. And this state in this class would be specific to the component. If you declare something outside of the class, that would be shared for all components of the same type. So like outside of this class it's static, in the class it's just instance. But it's fine. Yeah. So like this control will, what it will do, it will initialize. So it will look for some sentinel, some object that has this crazy attribute. And it will use this intersection observer, which is a thing that triggers event one when something gets in the view.
Yes.
Yeah. So like when the page is very long and you will scroll to this element, then it will, the intersection observer would like trigger, and it would call you this event, give you entries that were intersecting, and you call load more if needed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's just a very simple way to call the named command.
Yeah.
It's a command.
Yeah.
We have
it's a
the
command.
name.
It's async because we are awaiting the response from .vvm, because it's calling the server, so it will take some time. And here you can call this context named commands and use this named command name. And okay, this is used. Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter if there's a dot or not.
Yeah. I never saw the syntax, but I imagine that it works in JavaScript, so not a problem. Yeah. So like if this is a command, if it's not function, this maybe is too much defensive. I would just write this context name commands and this, and it would be fine. never mind. It
this
works.
is the
It
first
works.
time I've used
It
it,
works.
so I wasn't
Yeah.
sure even
Like
what I'm
if
doing.
this would be undefined, probably we have some problem in
Yeah,
.vvm, yeah. And also there will be at least an empty object,
Yeah.
so probably it should be fine. Then you can use try catch. You can await the command. If it returns some result, you can get the result that was
Yes.
returned from the server and do something with that. Here we are doing just calling control load more items command.
That's it.
And this control is doing what?
JS enhanced. Yeah.
JS enhanced.
Yeah.
That will call this load more items.
Yeah.
And this load more items will add it in the collection.
Yeah,
The slight problem of this that the collection will be growing.
Yep.
So like you will be doing full postbacks because command binding, and the VML would be increasingly larger and larger and larger. What you could do is to static command, like give me just the new items. My last item is this, give me the next ones, and use the result in JavaScript and just append it to the collection. Then it would be more efficient, especially when the page is very long. But as a demo, it's a very nice usage of this JS module, and we don't have many samples for JS modules, so this is nice that we have that. And also in the JS module, you can declare methods, for example, like hello. And you can call them from the page. So for example, if I would use your button, click command equals, and then I can say static command underscore JS invoke, and this is a little bit not nice because you need to invoke it like this. You can pass parameters like that, but like it works. Or if it's asynchronous, you can invoke async, wait for the result, and that would call the method, and you can do something in JavaScript. It can also return result, so you can do something with result, control items, maybe add range, and there would be like give me more data or something like that. Could be technically you can do things like that. And you call that with static command because you don't need to post it to the server. This would be translated to pure JavaScript, so no communication with the server, unless that method would call the named command. Yeah. So that's the last option we have with this sample. So thanks for a nice demo. A lot of various types of components, and you can see that each type of component has its own advantages or disadvantages. I would say if it's a universal component that can be potentially used in multiple applications, try to make it as a composite control. If it's some block that you will use repeatedly in the UI, use a markup control. If you need more JavaScript, you can try this JS directive. And that's it. That's it.
And
view models and validation targets.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Think about validation targets, because if you don't have child view models for each independent part of the user interface, validation targets would bite you. Yeah. Okay. So you will find the source code on our GitHub. The link will be in the description. And what we will do next time?
Next time, I think we'll take a look at a full UI kit in .vvm.
Okay,
so how to work with it and how to make a reusable component UI kit.
Okay, so let's try that.
Yeah,
we will have to build some.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and see you next time with Tom
and Dave.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.